You're listening to Women's Media Center Live with Robin Morgan.
Welcome to Women's Media Center Live. I'm Robin Morgan. And I'm going to start in right away because we have a big show for you today with 3 guests. One a historical figure and the other 2 in the flesh. Now, let's start with the historical figure. Anne Bethel Spencer, who was born in 1882 and died in 1975, was an American poet, a teacher, a civil rights activist, a librarian, and a gardener. She was a prominent figure of the Harlem Renaissance, also known as the New Negro Movement, despite living in Virginia for most of her life, far from the center of the movement, which was in New York. She met Edward Spencer while attending Virginia Seminary in Lynchburg, Virginia. Following their marriage in 1901, the couple moved into a house he built at 1313 Pierce Street, where they raised a family and lived for the remainder of their lives. Spencer is a widely anthologized poet and was the first Virginian and one of 3 African-American women included in the highly influential Norton Anthology of Modern Poetry, which came out in 1973. As a civil rights activist for equality and educational opportunities, she and her husband Edward, with close friend Mary Rice Hayes Allen and others, revived the chapter of the NAACP in Lynchburg, Virginia, which they were also responsible for establishing in 1913. In association with James Weldon Johnson, the branch became fully active with 96 members as of July 1918. The Spencers' home became an important center and an intellectual salon for guests and dignitaries such as Langston Hughes, Marian Anderson, George Washington Carver, Thurgood Marshall, Martin Luther King Jr., James Weldon Johnson, and W.E.B. Du Bois. Anne Spencer also loved her garden and her cottage, which her husband Edward built for her as a writing studio in the garden behind their home. And we're going to be devoting this program to her poetry and to her biographer and to her granddaughter. Her biographer is Dr. Noelle Morrissette, whom I'll say a bit about later, and her granddaughter is Shaun Spencer-Hester, which I'll say a lot about later. So, we'll be back in just a moment after this brief message. Subscribe to this program on your favorite podcast platform and leave us a review. Follow us on Twitter at WMC Live, like our Facebook page at facebook.com/WMC Live, and visit us at WMCLive.com for more information about our show and our guests.
You're listening to Women's Media Center Live with Robin Morgan.
Welcome back to our show about Anne Bethel Spencer, the American poet, the gardener, and a prominent figure of the Harlem Renaissance, who lived in Virginia. And her biographer is Dr. Noelle Morrissette, who is the Director of African American and African Diaspora Studies and Professor of English at UNC Greensboro, and the author of Anne Spencer, Between Worlds. She's with us today. And also the granddaughter herself, Shaun Spencer-Hester, who is the executive director and curator of the Anne Spencer House and Garden Museum. She's the granddaughter of Anne Spencer and the driving force behind the historical site of this civil rights activist and Harlem Renaissance activist and poet and gardener. So here they are, Noelle Morrissette and Shaun Spencer-Hester. Welcome to Women's Media Center Live. I'm very grateful to have you here. Now, Um, let's get started on Anne Spencer, the poet, the gardener, the lady of the Garden Museum, the an amazing figure in the Harlem Renaissance, and a fine poet. She well, let's plunge right into the middle of it. Why don't we start with her John Brown poem, because that was like a, an almost epic, and that became an overwhelming presence in her life, if I'm not wrong. You of course know a lot about this, uh, Noelle.
Yes, this is Noelle. The John Brown poem is an epic poem among other epic poems that Spencer was writing from the 1930s through to the end of her life. And um, as a figure, he becomes someone who helps guide Spencer to judge the 20th century, the terms of humanity and equality. And so it's a poem where Spencer is living her life, and it's as if she's speaking to John Brown in the various instances of her life, people she's meeting, things that she's viewing on the television in later decades, and books that she's reading by contemporaries in the American setting.
Like Leroy Jones, Mary Baraka.
Yes, Mary Baraka, then Leroy Jones at that time, but also people like E.B. White, mainstream New Yorker writers,
Right.
and just kind of thinking through positionality, thinking about her life in relationship to mainstream American writers and in relationship to major events in American politics and the rebellious 60s. And, there's a continuity there. There's something that she carries with her through John Brown, and that endures even beyond her passing.
She was a civil rights activist as well, wasn't she?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And here I think Shaun can tell you more.
Go ahead, granddaughter.
I sometimes refer to her as an advocate because she was always advocating for, for something.
Yeah. Yeah, she didn't shut up.
Well, she did, she was a great listener,
Well, no, yes,
and
of course.
I think that's one of the things that kind of drew so many of these people from Harlem to come to her. But she
Well, but I mean, she didn't fall silent in the face of injustice.
Oh no,
No, no, no, no.
that's what got her, that's
Going.
what got her moving and grooving and because she was definitely involved in her community and involved in the world.
Mm,
And um that's who she was. She knew, she thought of herself as being in the world.
yeah.
Her garden, her home is that little small little creation of it, but she was involved in things in her community, but also involved in politics um, and things that were going on in the world, which has influenced in much of her work. With a lot of I think her critics during her time
Hmm.
didn't value her work
Uh-huh.
because they didn't see it kind of flowered over
Well, and she
with
was
this.
black, and she was a female, and she,
Absolutely,
no.
absolutely, and all those things. But she was definitely involved in she was involved in creating, Dunbar High School here in Lynchburg, Virginia.
Hmm,
She was in creating that library.
hmm,
I was just looking. I was doing some just quick taking up some time before we came on, and I went on to Ancestry and was looking
hmm,
um at something, and it drew me back to Pierce Street in 1930 and of the family living there and and who was in, there's Edward and Ann Spencer at 1313 There's his brother Warwick right next door at 1315, and then right next door to them on the corner was the home house, Edward Spencer's home house. But living in that home house was, CWC. And
Oh,
CWC bec and he's 20, he's in his 20s, 22, 23 to 24 years old, and he's a boarder in, um, the Spencer home, which is owned by the Spencer home, but, Edward's mother is still living there, Mary, along with, other family members, but they have this boarder, CWC. I'm coming back around to this education that she was involved in, because then CWC becomes the principal
mhm.
at this library at Dunbar, at this, high school at Dunbar,
Yeah,
later on in years. And so, you think of that, you think of how things develop, and how, advocacy and, um,
and
health activism,
and
it
caught
comes
fire.
over time, right?
Right, and caught fire
Yeah,
with each other. Yeah,
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 absolutely.
yeah. And I mean, this must have been well known among Black activist circles because this block, this little area, was like a people referred to it as an escape, but it wasn't an escape. It was very engaged. But it was a what is another word for escape?
Well, you know
Not
what I changed because
what?
in the Garden Conservancy film, while I was taping that,
Yeah.
um, the film that just came out, Earth, I Thank You. I'm sure we'll talk about it later on.
Yes.
But as I was talking, and then I talked about that, and my grandmother Ann Spencer used this garden as a place to escape to, and then I came back around to it, and I said, no, like that's another word I want to use, and that word was freedom.
Yeah, exactly.
You know,
Exactly. This was free space, not escape space. This was a place where I mean the people who came to stay there in part came because there was not many other places that were very hospitable to them in Lynchburg, Virginia, but also because it was the place to be. There were salons, there were intellectual exchanges, there were all of these amazing things that that went on. I mean, and so when you have Martin Luther King coming and you have W.E.B. Du Bois and you have, it just goes on and on and on the list. George Washington Carver and Thurgood Marshall, and James Weldon Johnson and Marian Anderson and Langston Hughes, so she really made uh, a magnet in a sense for people, didn't she?
yeah, I called them Harlem satellites. She created this Harlem satellite. They were all over the country. These people
Ah,
traveled widely, and not just in America.
of course.
Yeah.
And so there were these little safe places that were also stopovers and that were at the same time amazing intellectual brilliance, stop ats. I mean, they're not your basic Holiday Inn, I can tell you that. I mean, wow, they're fantastic.
Oh, no, it was not. And they invited, you talk about, her advocacy that went beyond, just policing,
Yeah.
and things. It was also there were friendships there. And
Yes.
so when people came to visit the Spencers, they had a party all the
Oh,
time for them, So with that party, they invited the community to come in, and even if
wow.
it wasn't a party, it was maybe they were there for something else doing a gig in Lynchburg or somewhere around. They
Right.
would people would know they were there because in the black newspapers, it just it listed everything, black, white, whatever newspapers, you listed everything during the time of what these people were doing, who
Yeah.
was coming, who was going, and so they said, "Oh, Langston Hughes is going to be in town," and blah 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 blah, and they would come to the Spencer's house, ring the doorbell. Edward or Ann, whoever answered the door, would say, "Come on in," um, and and that's how the community grew.
God, that's amazing. It's just so wonderful. And these were your grandparents.
These were my amazing grandparents
Oh my
that I had
God.
no idea.
I was just going to say, did you have any idea that you were in the presence
Oh
of great
no,
great ones?
no,
You were
I,
just running through the house asking for who has a cookie.
yeah, or yeah, a slice of that white lightning cake that she would sometimes bake for us if she sat still long to cook something or bake something. But yeah, I had, we don't know who our people are until, unfortunately, until sometimes they're gone.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, but
But it's
I'm one of those fortunate people. to get
Well,
to be doing what I'm doing.
and you're the curator now. My God,
I
how does
and that
that
was
feel?
not a plan. There's no Spencer Bible that says in this time and this year, this is what you will be doing.
Right.
It just so happened that, this year we'll celebrate our 50th anniversary.
My
Um,
God.
and my father really started this, and that community building is in us. He starts it, building it with the community.
Mm.
That's how the Ann Spencer Memorial Foundation started. Um,
The
and then
Garden
my
Conservancy is the only national nonprofit organization that preserves, shares, and celebrates gardens. I have some material that you should
yes,
send. And of course, and it produced this great documentary, which I hungrily devoured, called Earth, I Thank You: The Garden and Legacy of Anne Spencer. And it's available on the Garden Conservancy's website at gardenconservancy.org, and on the Garden Conservancy's YouTube channel. So you can get it for free. But it's just also, it's wonderful. It's so beautiful. And it's got everything. It's got, all the good things, gardens and poetry. What else is there? You mean there's something else? Um, and it's just so fantastic. It's very lyrical and very lovely. And she was a great gardener. And she was a fine poet too, you know. Um, and I would like to thank the Conservancy board member, Kate Cordson, who is the executive producer of the documentary, and it was made possible by Suzanne and Frederick Reinstein Fund for Documentary Films, and we're grateful to them both. But it's a very fun thing to read and a very positive and affirmative thing to see, which these days we all need in this country, um, because we're up against a whole lot of.
it's a groundbreaking initiative. We're partners. We've been partners with the Garden Conservancy.
Hmm.
Oh my goodness, since Jane White introduced me to them when I arrived in 2008, but she was involved with Garden Conservancy um, as a board member. But they consulted on the hillside garden restoration projects of this garden. So when they approached me about this film,
Hmm.
um, I just thought it started out as a 5-minute film. You've
Yeah.
seen it, right? And
Oh,
and had no idea, and it was just so
it's a
many different
real
facets
thing.
of Anne Spencer
Yeah.
that was realized that it became what we see today. It's just I'm stunned. I cry when I watch it. It's just brilliant,
Well,
and
it must
it's
bring.
it's it's a wonderful uh, tribute to Anne
Yeah.
Spencer's legacy.
Yeah. And it must bring back so much. I mean, it must bring back smells and tastes and feelings that you had as a child. This is fantastic. This is,
That's what drew me in.
yeah, of course.
That's really what drew me to come back to work, and to be a part of this was when I was really visiting my mother, who was
Ah,
still living across the street.
uh-huh,
And well, actually, I had moved here from DC and trying to figure out what I was going to do, and didn't have any idea I was going to be here, but maybe a year or two with my
uh-huh,
mother, spend some time with her in her 80s. I get the
uh-huh.
key, I go across the street, open the door, and it was those smells. And
Oh,
it was like something was the ham was in the kitchen,
yeah.
in the oven in the kitchen, and it was the senses that opened up for me.
Yeah.
That I remembered, like you said, um, Robin, about running through the house. I remembered, the
Right.
stories that my father told, and my grandmother sitting in the chair, because she
Yeah.
always sat in the sunroom, you
Oh,
know?
oh, how wonderful. How amazing. I mean, I identify very much with her because I'm a gardener and a poet. I've done 9 books of poems, and I have a garden in the middle of New York City. Well, I mean, not in the middle of, but it's a little garden in Greenwich Village. And I grow some vegetables there, and I grow herbs, and I grow roses and jasmine and
Mm.
great smelling, incredible things. And sometimes when I go out there, and now I'm old and diseased, and so I can't garden as much. And I have a dear friend who gardens in a sense for me when I talk about where things go. But basically the work is done, and I recognize plants in your in the video in the film. Oh, look at that! They've got they got, and she put in. Oh, isn't that interesting? How she's got it next to the irises. I mean, it's that secret language that gardeners speak with each other. And
And they have meaning to you.
yeah,
Is that
yeah,
right? Yeah.
yeah, and 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 I've written a number of books based on the garden. I mean, one was even called Upstairs in the Garden because before I moved to this apartment, which has a garden, I had a top floor and I colonized the roof.
Mhm.
So it was literally upstairs in the garden, with lots of tubs and things. Um, but it is a very sane making process. It keeps you grounded. It keeps you. I don't know how anybody can be a poet and not be a gardener. How about that?
Me either. I can't, even though I'm the curator in parentheses, I work in that garden. I enjoy it. I
Uh
and
huh.
I enjoy putting my hands in the dirt
Oh
and,
God, yes. Nothing is better than that. That's the most fun that there is, and particularly since I wasn't allowed to sort of play in the dirt when I was little, I really I get even with it now. Yeah, let me tell you, I just get down there. Um, so it's great. It's just beautiful, and I even have a little waterfall which I put in. I mean, my son put in, and it cycles around. It's not a real waterfall, but it's a little waterfall, and it makes sound, and the sound of falling water. It's just heaven,
yeah.
absolute heaven. So I understand what she was after,
It's
and
that's the elements of earth, right?
that's
It's
right.
yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And the way in which she made of it not an
Mhm.
escape, not a
Mhm.
retreat, but
Mhm.
but a little paradise. I mean, a real freedom. I mean, real. I'm sure there were poetry readings there. I'm sure there were um, certainly, obviously, gatherings. I mean, it's
Oh,
just
definitely. Yeah,
yeah.
definitely. She
uh,
there were even maybe not as we think as we're talking today, but my grandmother was involved in she was in a garden club. There were
uh-huh,
um 8 African American garden clubs here at the time, and she was a member of the Jack and Jill Club, which was a prominent African American, actually a national club throughout the
huh,
United States, where these women, who usually their children or their grandchildren, and at the time was my older brother Edward, who she was hosting for him in the garden.
oh,
Yeah,
oh,
yeah.
oh, it's so
There were
precious.
weddings in the garden. My aunt
Oh
Elroy
yeah,
married in the
I've had a
garden.
I've had a wedding in the garden. Yeah,
Yeah,
yep,
I
yep,
married in that garden.
yep.
Um,
Yeah,
just there was a party for Langston Hughes
yeah.
that they had. There was and I read this in one of the African American newspapers. There were only 250 people in the Edward and Ann Spencer home, and inside at the home and outside in the garden. They mentioned the garden.
Mm,
Um, yeah. So
It's
there were multiple things. This was an extension. This outdoor area. Sometimes people, when they come there, they don't know when they see the colors of
uh-huh,
the house.
yeah.
They say, is she bringing the color in or taking the color out? Because you know, and it kind of goes like, I was looking about that to Noelle's book, Between Worlds.
Yeah.
That's where she was, right? No, in a way, Noelle, I'm trying to, she
Yeah,
was
yeah,
Ann
talk
Spencer
about that.
between worlds always.
Yeah. Talk about how she kept that balance.
Well, I think it's this is Noelle speaking. It's a defiance in some ways, and a will to create, and a will to call down and bring everything that is a pleasure to you. um, Spencer has this self-authored biography that's in County Cullen's anthology, Caroling Dusk, where she talks about being the ultimate taboo as a Black woman, and there's a way in which she is creating the world that she wants to live in,
Hmm.
the world that she wants to um, populate with others, right? And I think one of the things that's so fundamental about her is that even with her singular vision She is so community minded. As Shaun was saying, with advocacy, with sharing bulbs, with recycling materials for the house and the garden. There's this heartbreaking story about um, Ann Spencer visiting with James Weldon Johnson and his wife, Grace Nail Johnson.
Mhm.
And just a couple months later, after Easter, when they've visited the Spencers, they're in Maine and Wiscasset, where they visit a friend of James Weldon's,
Mhm.
uh, who was a dean at NYU Teachers College. Um, and Spencer sends bulbs to the Johnsons. And then he is struck by, they have a terrible accident. He's struck by a train
Mm.
uh, and dies, and Grace Nail is incapacitated for months. But what's there at the end of it is the bulbs that she's given the Johnsons. Um, and so there's something to the story of just sharing in nature and creating this context for living that is of one's choosing rather than just receiving what is out in the world of Jim Crow.
Yes.
And I think that that's just really powerful. It's not an individuated way of living. It is very much about sharing and reciprocity.
It is
And
community, isn't it?
yeah, it's community
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah.
And Shaun knows this better than anyone because she has extended this kind of practice, this worldview, right?
Mm.
Oh, yeah, I learned my first worldview was cleaning up the alley in the community with my dad.
Ah, ha,
Wow.
ha. Yeah. No, but it is and it's deeply rooted and deeply composed. It's through composed. It's very thorough because it's you know I've grown up hearing about the Harlem Renaissance. And I live in New York City, so of course I know about the Harlem Renaissance. But and Alice's discovery of Zora Neale Hurston, Alice Walker's discovery of her and the 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 Renaissance of the Renaissance was very meaningful. But to create this in Virginia and expand the Harlem Renaissance idea, or even maybe presage it, is really quite something. I mean, that is a way of saying we're not only there, we're here, we're everywhere.
Yes.
I
I
don't
mean,
think that they even knew what they were doing at the time. I think we look back at it maybe as in that way,
uh-huh,
but I
uh-huh,
but I don't think that it was day to day. It was this movement. This is what we have to do now for our community. This is what we have to
right,
do for our people. This is what we have to do, for Georgia, Virginia, whatever is going on.
right,
But
right,
but these were just people like us today trying to figure it out,
yeah.
trying to believe
Well, that's
what
that's
we're
what it
hearing.
always is, isn't it? I mean,
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
just
believe what's
doing the
going on,
best you
believe what's
can.
happening and trying to still exist in that maybe,
Yeah,
you
no, it's
know?
trying to do your best that you can. I mean,
Yeah.
it's putting one foot in front of the other and thinking, well, I don't know, see if the earth will support me here. Oh well, it will. I'll take another step, and that's it. The grand visions that men claim to have, bless their hearts, um, I don't think women are prey to that much. I think women are much more um, put one foot in front of the other and get it done.
It's an ethos, right? It's a code
Yes,
for living. It's a code for knowing right from wrong and not submitting to these imperatives that are so profoundly corrupt and dehumanizing and violent, you know? So
yes,
there,
yes.
there's a then and there's a now to that.
Yeah. Well, but that eventually does fade. I mean, I tell myself this every day. Um, and is sustained because this is the earth. I mean, and she's very right in saying, Earth, I hear you, and you're there for me. And she knows this. And and I think she's absolutely remarkable. Um, and I've been talking about her with a number of people, Toy Dericotte and some of the younger poets, Robin. Oh God, what is her name? She's got my first name too. Robin Smith. Robin Cost Lewis.
Ben Costa Lewis, yeah.
Yes. Oh God, she is so wonderful. She is fantastic. Great poet. Really great poet. So,
Mhm.
um, you see, we're lucky to live in an age um, where the Harlem Renaissance, although it is still in effect beleaguered, uh, and politically very much so.
I
Uh,
think the Harlem Renaissance was so important to the
yeah,
world. We
yeah.
look at it as this Negro movement, and so then therefore we put a black face on it.
Oh no,
Um, but it
it
was,
was
you
American
know,
literature. It was
it
literature.
was it was, I when I this is part of my, you'll hear me say very often, that, and even if you come on a tour, that, the Harlem Renaissance was the most important arts and cultural movement, which is still living and surviving and what we are living on today. It
Yes,
started that, and it also, in a way, maybe helped, integrate it because it kind of made, it was money also involved in that,
right.
but eventually came around to allowing these people to use their names and to publish,
Yeah,
you know?
yeah, yeah. I mean, and so there are now, great veins of Black literature that are influential in themselves, you know, um, and that was not possible at one point because there was
Oh,
nothing to influence one as a young poet, nothing to, I mean, it was created in a sense out of love and hope and whole cloth, you know. Um, It was out of guts and defiance and
And
that's what
resistance to have their
yeah,
own,
that's
you
right.
know? One thing about my grandmother, a lot of people, she was this activist, and she was also this advocate that I talked about. She would stand up for her own rights
Yeah,
and things that she
damn
made,
right.
and also went against, people, the majority. When integration was coming about, my grandmother didn't want integration. It wasn't that she didn't believe in it. She
Mhm.
certainly understood it probably more than the people at the time did. We look back at it, we may not have ever done it,
Yeah.
but,
Didn't
she didn't
interest
want
her.
to integrate, and people, and talk about, now we're coming now into the '60s,
Yeah.
um, and, um, because she saw what it did to the Black culture.
Mhm.
And we're not talking about
Mhm.
community. We're talking
Yeah.
about the culture.
Right.
What it's gonna do. And it's not no longer we're gonna go to, Mr. Johnson's, um, medical office on Fifth Street here in Lynch.
Right.
Now we're gonna,
Yeah.
now we're gonna go into Lynchburg General Hospital, where
Uh-huh.
the white doctors are, and Johnson
Right.
is the only Black doctor.
Right.
You
Right.
know, so it became the world that we're living in today. Not to say that it was, better or worse, but that was her belief.
Yeah. No, and it was certainly less rich. It was less textured. It was less, you know, possible. Less filled with possibility. because
Yeah.
because it was constrained of necessity, and
Well,
that
I think she looked at culture kind of as this part of the world.
yeah,
There are we live amongst different cultures in the world. That's who we are. We're not made to be divided.
yeah,
Um,
that's
you
right.
know, um, and I think that's what she was afraid of us losing that culture, which we
Well,
did lose.
well, yeah,
We're the only you know, uh, group of people in the world that we really don't know our culture.
yeah, yeah. Well, but we're getting it back. I mean, it's she said
We'll
like
never get that back.
well
We'll
she
never
said
get that back.
I know, but she said like a hopeful little bunny, it's like oh
You
we're
know,
gonna get
but
no
but but also, I tell this story, not necessarily, I mean, where we are today, but who she was at the time about standing up, for what she truly believed in. It didn't have to necessarily it wasn't a group thing for her, but very often she was involved in a group of people who believed in the same thing,
Yeah, which must have been just
you know?
joy.
And
Joy and
how rich is that,
God, that's incredible.
you know?
It's incredible.
Yeah.
They would catch fire from each other and go further, and then
Yeah.
take it, raise it another
Yeah.
level and raise it another level and another. And every poem and every piece of music, my God, we haven't even gotten into that. And every garden for that matter, every stroke that was taken added to that richness and until it flowed over like a waterfall, like a I don't think that it is over. I refuse to think that. I think that it comes back in different ways. It comes back in other forms, and it comes back in young people
Oh, yeah.
today.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I mean, and I know I don't I know that I ricochet between being a desperate pessimist and a stupid optimist. I mean, but still, I I do see in the young people an amazing turnabout, and even in older people today. I see all those people hitting the streets and marches, and I see all those people reacting to ICE, and all those people. This is different this time. This is different from the last time he was president, and it's not just him either, of course. But it, I think that there's something afoot, as they say, and I certainly pray for that and hope for it. And
Mm.
and you people in your amazing community, which is still going. I mean, when you speak of people down the street and so's brother lives, this is so lovely. This is just so amazing. And the book is fantastic. The book is, again, Anne Spencer, Between Worlds, and it's by Noelle Morrissette, and it's wonderful. And it's a great gardening book too, because you can get sneak peeks into the things that she did and put in and planted. But it is also a wonderful biography of her and her life as a librarian, her life as a poet, and her life as an activist, and her life. She was uh, a heroine for us all.
Mm.
Um,
I think she would be smiling at that word if she
yeah,
liked that word.
she like that. She like
Yeah.
that. Okay, well, she can have it in golden
Who
letters.
doesn't wanna be a heroine,
She doesn't want to be a heroine?
right?
She doesn't?
No, I said who doesn't wanna be a
Oh, who
heroine?
doesn't? Yeah, well, exactly. There you go.
Mhm.
So and so my deep thanks to Noelle, because it's just wonderful what you're doing and what you managed to do in this book. How'd you say it took 10 years? Is that what you said?
It took 10 years, but
Oh
a
my,
large part of that is, having wonderful conversations with Shaun and with others who were coming through, streaming through sometimes the Ann Spencer House and Garden Museum. And Shaun was just so incredibly generous in providing me with a space to conduct my research in the Ann Spencer writing cabin, Edencrawl.
oh, you were there in the cabinet in
And
the cabin. Oh wow, I envy you.
yes, but also just the conversations I was able to have with Shaun, and who comes with just such great wisdom. And it is such a mantle of responsibility. I know she's approached it with so much strength and candor, and also just creative genius to make the House and Garden Museum what it is. So,
Well,
um,
you must have done. You
Thank you,
must
Noah.
have you must have really done that, John, because and carried it even further because it's well known now and it's coming even into greater prominence, and it soon will be a must see, cannot avoid, do not avoid at all costs. Not only seeing the film, which we all cry over, and not only reading um, Noel's book, but but going there and actually seeing the garden. I hope to get there someday. I really do hope to get there.
Oh, I hope you will get here someday soon. This year, I hope you can get here this year.
Wow.
Not too long away. Well, in April the 18th, if I have the date right, it's a Saturday. We'll be
Uh-huh.
celebrating our 50th anniversary and talk about creativity. And when I
Oh,
arrived here, I said, "Well," when I decided I'm gonna stay, "Well, I'll just see what I can do." That was my task. And so,
oh,
what that definitely Noelle knows, throughout the years, we have become friends,
yeah.
with her writing this book, but also she's become, someone I can rely on that gives me some good advice.
Mm,
And, but we're celebrating not just the 50th anniversary, but opening our new education and visitor center. When I look back at the minutes from the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, even into the 2000s, and each one of those, somewhere in one of those board meetings, they all said we need a bathroom, we need a restrooms, we need a visitor center, and
mm.
so that kind of became something that I kind of pushed our board to do, and so now we have achieved it,
Wow.
so we're really excited to do
That is
that,
no small
and
thing. That is
we
truly.
did that through COVID, and
Wow.
we always are working on a shoestring budget, just
Yeah.
not just because we're a nonprofit, because sometimes we can do that. We bring in. There's a lot of Spencers and
Mm,
people related and friends that have come in on this project that have volunteered and donated things and
mm.
made it possible. So we hope that you can come and celebrate with us and invite your audience to
Oh,
come and celebrate with us too.
well, yes, I want to point out to everybody it's in Lynchburg, Virginia, and it is on Pierce Street, and it is, what is it, 1313?
1313, it's in the historic Pierce Street Renaissance Historic District, has the most Virginia historic highway markers in the Commonwealth of Virginia within
Wow,
2 blocks.
wow, 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 wow. And it's going to be gorgeous, and you want to go there in the summertime.
Yeah,
And the book will prepare you perfectly, because again, the book is terrific, and it is called Anne Spencer, Between Worlds. And in addition, you can prep yourself by the film, which is very moving.
absolutely.
And the film is, how do I get the film now? Let's see.
At the Garden Conservancy website.
Right. Okay. Well, you're both terrific, and it's so wonderful that you found each other and that you're friends and that you're working together on this, and that this is the connective root that keeps you going. It's an inspiration, I think, to all women, and to memory, and to preservation, and to history, and to inclusive history, and to the works. I mean, it's a really wonderful thing, and I'm delighted that you were on Women's Media Center Live, and I hope you come back and you come here again. Okay?
All right. Thank you so much for having me, Robin. This has been a thrill.
Well,
Wonderful.
well, it's our great pleasure. Um, and uh, and may it be the first of many. Okay, take care.
Take care.
Take care.
Thank you, Noelle. Thank you, Shaun.
Thank you,
Thank
Robin. Bye, Noelle. I'll see you soon.
Yes.
We have to take a short break here, but I'll be right back with some, well, fighting words. The Women's Media Center, founded in 2005 by Jane Fonda, Gloria Steinem, and myself, is a progressive, nonpartisan, nonprofit organization working to make women visible and powerful in media. You can learn more about the WMC at womensmediacenter.com.
You're listening to Women's Media Center Live with Robin Morgan.
Think small. Those are fighting words. Maybe we've been thinking too big. Making revolutions on a grandiose scale is something the boys have always done, have modeled for the rest of us. But what Senator Elisa Slotkin of Michigan said recently in a taped video got me thinking. She said if each of us just tried a tiny bit harder, did half an inch more, worked only a smidgen more intensely at whatever, we could pull this whole thing off. Demonstrating and marching when we haven't Letter writing, volunteering for poll watching or canvassing or phone banks or other political tasks or even campaigns. You know the drill. Nothing huge and brave and showy, just a little humble gesture here and there. She knows whereof she spoke, too. She was one of the 6 lawmakers who made the wonderfully infamous video telling the military that they can legally refuse to perform illegal orders. It was a 90-second video, 90 seconds, and it was posted on social media and online on last November 18th, and it features Lisa Slotkin of Michigan, the senator, and Senator Mark Kelly of Arizona, and Representative Maggie Goodlander of New Hampshire, and Representative Jason Crow of Colorado, and Representatives Chris DeLuzio and Chrissy Houlihan of Pennsylvania. All are either highly decorated military veterans or former intelligence officials. They say things like, "Right now, our threats to the Constitution aren't just coming from abroad, but right here at home," says DeLuzio, a former Navy officer, and Crow, a former Army Ranger and paratrooper. They say that in turn. Kelly, a former Navy captain, then says our laws are clear. You can refuse illegal orders, which Slotkin, once a CIA officer, repeats for emphasis. Crow then adds that military members must refuse illegal orders before the other lawmakers say no one has to carry out orders that violate the law or our Constitution. Close quote. They are all absolutely correct, and the video made real waves, important waves for democracy's sake. Of course, Trump had conniptions. "It's called seditious behavior at the highest level," the president wrote on Truth Social. "Each one of these traitors to our country should be arrested and put on trial. Their words cannot be allowed to stand." This is in all caps. "We won't have a country anymore." Many, 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 many exclamation points. "An example must be set." In another post, he labeled it seditious behavior, punishable by death. Close quote. Well, of course it's not. But now, anyway, a few months later, a grand jury has refused to indict them. A grand jury has refused. Because actually they did nothing wrong and they did nothing illegal. And they knew this. And in later persecutions by the Trump puppet Hegseth at the Pentagon, a judge found in favor of Mark Kelly. This was in terms of taking away his pension and his payment and his ribbons and all of that. So the Trumpers lost hands down all around. And I began to think of all the little ways, some of them tiny, that things are changing. Not only the marches and the bravery of ordinary people coming out with their whistles and alerting people and neighbors that ICE is in the neighborhood and they're watching the ICE stormtroopers, but Senator Tim Scott, there's a big one, of South Carolina, the only African-American Republican in the Senate, who actually dared say that a different video, which depicted former President Obama and Michelle Obama as apes, was, and here I quote, "the most racist thing I have ever seen come out of this White House." Close quote. Trump then immediately responded by saying that A, a staffer did it, not him. B, no, he had not fired the staffer, and he wouldn't. And C, Scott would be in trouble in primary time. In other words, he would campaign against him. But Tim Scott stuck to his guns. And then I thought of Beyoncé and even Taylor Swift making their politics clear. And then I thought of how anti-Trumpism was slowly but certainly making its way into pop culture, and what a good thing that was. And then I thought of the Olympics team. The Olympics, my God, you can't get more American than that. If you're on the American team. But members of the curling team, the snowboarding team, the skiers, the downhill skiers, the figure skaters, I mean, quite a few athletes said, well, they're proud to represent the country, but these days it was difficult. One was an immigrant herself. So a small thing can be a big thing, and a big thing has to come from a small. So let's remember to just lean a little bit. 1 inch, a half an inch, a half an inch. Let's lean together. Leaning, leaning, leaning. And that's our show for this week. You can follow me on social media at The Robin Morgan. You can check out my blog at robinmorgan.net, and you can find my new novel, Parallax, and my just-out new book of poems, Harvesting Darkness, wherever books are sold. Portions of this program were taped earlier. Views expressed here do not necessarily represent the WMC. Here's the family for Women's Media Center Live. Executive producer, as well as founding and sustaining sponsor, Regina K. Scully. WMC president and co-executive producer for this program, Julie Burton. I'm Robin Morgan, your producer and host. Thank you for being with us. Join us next time on Women's Media Center Live.